Okay, the first item on the agenda is public comment. So if anyone wishes to speak before the board on any issue, please step to the podium and state your name and address. And you have 2 minutes.
We're wondering if we could have like 5.
I think that could be.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is Karen Soneman, Winona County Attorney, and with me tonight is Claire Exley, who's our crime victims coordinator, but also coordinates our sexual assault interagency council. And we have presentations to make tonight that we wanted to do in front of the board. So I'm going to turn it over to Claire.
Good evening. As Karen said, my name is Claire Exley, and I'm the leader of Winona County Sexual Assault Interagency Council, also known as SAIC. Thank you for having me here tonight to speak about our SAIC and present 3 of our valuable team members with a well-deserved award. According to the National Sexual Violence Resource Center, every 107 seconds, another American is sexually assaulted. Each year, there are around 293,000 victims of sexual assault. Meaningful change comes from working together. As a group, sexual assault response teams in our community play a powerful role in improving our collective response to sexual violence. The Winona County SAIC promotes a victim-centered response to sexual violence through increased collaboration and education across various disciplines. Our SAIC consists of numerous community and system organizations working together to respond to sexual assault in our county. Our mission is to coordinate an effective interagency and community response to sexual assault, serving all victims and seeking justice. The Winona County SAIC team is one of only 12 response teams across the state of Minnesota. The team formed in 1998 and has been continuously working on improving the community's response to sex crimes. Our team focuses on creating and implementing a protocol response for these cases, provides and receives training, conducts case reviews, creates community awareness around the issue of sexual assault, and enforces organization accountability. The Winona County SAIC currently consists of representatives from numerous agencies: the Winona Police Department, Winona County Sheriff's Office, St. Charles Police Department, Lewiston Police Department, Goodview Police Department, the Minnesota Department of Corrections, the Winona County Attorney's Office, Winona County Community Services, Family and Children's Center, Women's Resource Center of Winona, the SEMCAT Clinic, Winona Health, Winona State University, St. Mary's University, and Minnesota State College Southeast. I'm very grateful to lead a group of such hardworking, dedicated, and passionate individuals. It is truly remarkable to see our team members come together for this purpose. We are proud of the effective changes our SAIC has been able to accomplish and how those changes have improved our collective response to victims and survivors of sexual assault. And with that, I will turn it back over to Karen, who will present the 2019 SAIC Service Award. Thank you.
Just wanted to let you know also that SAIC is funded through a SMART grant from State of Minnesota Department of Public Safety Office of Justice Programs that our office, the County Attorney's Office, is eligible to apply for every year, and which we've done for many, many years. In fact, we're trying to figure out if we've done it for the whole 20 years. But anyways, we've been successful in receiving that grant. The entire operating expenses of SAIC are paid for by that grant, and that grant amount is $13,000 with $4,334 of in-kind match requirement from Winona County. We're able to do this work on this shoestring budget because of the dedication and commitment of everyone on the SAIC team. But tonight we're giving out our first annual awards to 3 very special individuals. You have their bios on your desk there, and I also had them out to the press and available for the audience. So I won't go into those. They're lengthy and they show the dedication of these individuals. And we honor them tonight with these awards. So I'd ask Ann Sharmock, Nicole Norman, and Holly Fratsky to come up. Ann is with the, go ahead. Ann? Yeah. Ann is with the Winona, did I have the wrong one? Yeah. Okay, Holly, sorry. I don't get up here very often to speak. Holly Fretzky is with Winona State University. She is a nurse practitioner in women's health and was trained as a SANE nurse, which is sexual assault nurse examiner. And she's been in this community for most of her life. So we want to thank Holly. And then we have Now we have Ann. Ann Sharmock is with the Winona City Police Department. She is an investigator there and works on our team and helps, investigate sexual assault cases and is wonderful to work with in our office when we prosecute those cases. And finally is Nicole Norman, who is an officer with the Goodview Police Department. And Nicole has served in many capacities, but is also works with Ann on the Winona State, and I don't know, Holly, if you're on that as well, but the Winona State Gender-Based Violence Reinitiative, which addresses protocol for addressing sexual assaults on campus, and they borrowed heavily from the SAAC protocol. So I don't know if these wonderful individuals would like to say a few words, but we do want to congratulate them for their work.
Thank you. It's an honor to be nominated with Nicole and with Holly, and it's a privilege to be able to serve the community of Winona, especially crime victims of such an intimate nature that we deal with. So thank you. Appreciate this. You don't take it lightly.
I would have to agree. I've really appreciated being a part of this team. It has certainly allowed me to get more involved with victims, survivors. It certainly helped me to understand a lot more than what I did before, and just to be able to, help our survivors in a lot of different ways. So I'm very honored to be with these two ladies as well, to be honored on this.
And I'd like to reiterate that as well, too. I'm very honored to receive this award, along with these two very fabulous women. And I feel very privileged to be able to provide the services that we do on campus at Winona State. Not many campuses our size are able to provide sexual assault nurse exams on campuses. And so the fact that we are able to provide that service to our students is a wonderful service that we're able to provide them. Give them some compassionate care right there on campus. And I'm very pleased to say that we're actually working on a project right now to be able to bring training to Winona State campus to be able to train more nurses to be able to provide that service out in their communities as well too. So a wonderful thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you. It's really nice to take a little time out to give some awards, particularly to three young ladies who have such skills and focus for this particular task. So thank you for all the work you do. And thanks to the county attorney's office, whoever writes the grant, that helps. So not sure. Okay. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else wishing to speak before the board? It's a hard act to follow, but
It's kind of our own Winona SVU.
Yeah.
Our own Winona. You can put that down, Chris. Winona SVU.
okay. For the third and final time, is there anyone wishing to speak before the board on any subject tonight? You have 2 minutes, and you can come to the podium and state your name and address. All right, thank you very much. We'll close the public comment period. As for approval of the county board minutes for the April 9th, county board meeting, they're on page 11 of the agenda.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
And we have a second. Motion by Commissioner Olson, second by Commissioner Jacob. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Okay, the board minutes for April 9th are approved. We also have minutes from the April 9th closed session. Need a motion to accept those or to approve those.
So move.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Ward, seconded by Commissioner Olson. Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving the closed session minutes of April 9th, 2019, signify by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? Good. Board minutes, the closed session minutes are approved. We have two committee minutes to acknowledge. So one is the Planning Commission from February 27th, 2019.
Motion to acknowledge.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to acknowledge by Commissioner Olson, seconded by Commissioner Jacob. Is there any discussion? Okay, we're all those in favor of acknowledging the minutes from the Planning Commission meeting of February 27th, 2019, signify by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? Okay, one more. We have minutes from the Board of Adjustment meeting for February 21st, 2019, and we need to acknowledge those.
Move to approve the acknowledgement.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to acknowledge the Board of Adjustment meeting minutes from February 21st. Motion by Commissioner Jacobs, seconded by Commissioner Olson. Any discussion? All those in favor of acknowledging the Board of Adjustment meeting minutes from February 21st, 2019, signify by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? Okay, we have those acknowledged. Consent comments and any messages after the meeting?
I've done.
Okay. Or approval of the agenda, so.
Okay, I would like to pull items 6.13 and 6.14 for separate votes. And then one committee update at the end of the meeting, please.
Okay, so let's make 6.13 item 7.01, and we'll make 6.14 7.02.
I support 6.2. I just had a couple questions, so I wanted to pull that.
Okay. 6.2 becomes 7.03. And do you have any announcements or any updates?
Yes, yeah. I do.
Okay.
Thanks.
And I have an announcement and a future agenda item for the end of the meeting. Commissioner Olson?
I'd like to pull item 6.1 just because the chair is here from the Workforce Development Board, and I'd like just to, all the agenda items pretty elaborate. We can at least explain what's going on.
Good idea. Okay, 6.1, 7 becomes 7.04. So we have 4 items pulled. Commissioner Jacob?
Just one comment at the end of the meeting.
Okay. Attorney Sonneman?
Just one.
One comment, okay. All righty. So we need a motion to approve the amended agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Olson, seconded by Commissioner Jacob, to approve the amended agenda. All those, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, the motion passes. Can you do the consent business, please, Mr. Fritz?
Sure. I'll be happy to do that. 6.1 and 6.2 have been pulled from the agenda for further discussion. 6.3, approve furniture for income maintenance from Schmidt Goodman as best value alternative pursuant to procurement policy 5.02, section V, subsection D. 6.4, approve medical examiner's request. 6.5, authorize county administrator to reimburse Winona Health for build-out services for public health space. 6.6, approve joint powers agreement and resolution with the state of Minnesota, BCA, ICAC task force. 6.7, approve monthly resolution. 6.8, approve resolution declaring a state of emergency. 6.9, award bid for 2019 Odyssey surfacing to Allied Blacktop Company. 6.10, award bid for 2009 chip seal project to Scott Construction. 6.11, award bid for bituminous resurfacing of CASA 9, 12, 15, and 17 to Dunn Blacktop Company. 6.12, award bid for Fairweather Road and Casad 25 bridge replacements to Zenke, Inc. 6.13, approve LELS 64.
We're pulling out.
Oh, that one, I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's
Right, those are the two. 6.14 and 6.13 are pulled. 6.15, approve resolution for donations received 1/1/2019 through 3/31/2019. 6.16, approve write-off of uncollectible accounts. 6.17, approve the 2018 restricted and assigned reserves. 6.18, confirm payment of disbursements. And that should be the consent agenda.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Ward and seconded by Commissioner Meyer to approve the consent business. Although, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? Okay, so the consent business is approved. And we have 6.13, which becomes 7.01. And it is on page 109 if anyone's following on the agenda packet.
Yes, I just want a separate vote. It's a labor agreement, and I'm sticking to my guns that at some point in time, I want pay for performance to be considered in all our contracts.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Do we have a motion to, the recommendation is to approve the LELS 64 labor agreement 2000.
Approval.
Second.
Okay. So we have a motion by Commissioner Jacobs, seconded by Commissioner Olson. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the labor agreement signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose?
Aye.
Okay, the vote is 4-1. 6.14 is now item 7.02, and that's on page 135.
And again, that's another labor agreement, and I would like us to seriously consider some type of pay for performance.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the WCHSEA labor agreement for 2019 to 2021. Motion by Commissioner Olson, seconded by Commissioner Meyer. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Okay, so that's a 4-1 vote, so it's passed. 7.03 is actually 6.2 for the public health space. And that's on page 47.
Do you want me to go ahead?
Commissioner Meyer?
Yep. So I support it. I think it's a good thing, and we've talked about it. I had 3 questions. It looks like the annual fee with the utilities and housekeeping is about $40,000, and WIC is going to pay for 75% of the WIC space. What percentage of the total space is WIC?
It's only 2 offices and 2 exam rooms and then part of the reception. So I think if we, I don't
Less than half?
Less than half.
40, something like that? A third, maybe?
I'd probably a third.
1/3? Okay,
Yeah,
thanks,
third.
that's great. So the lease says it starts on May 1st,
Yeah.
and that's true, because we're going to start the
Right.
reconfiguration?
Actually, no, that was the original day we were shooting for. And so I talked to Winona Health regarding that. And even though the agreement says that, we're going to only pay when we actually move in, which our first date is May 27th.
Okay.
Is when we expect to move WIC. We hope to move the rest of the public health in around June 10th or so.
Okay, and that was my other
Yeah.
question. When are you actually going to move? So,
Yeah.
awesome, great, thanks
And
for
and
that.
the amount, I'm trying to see here just real quick. Yeah, so that's the rent that you were talking about, yeah,
Yep.
that's okay.
Super, thanks. Appreciate it.
One other thing, just along those lines, Jill Johnson has applied for a WIC grant. I'm not sure if we'll get it or not, but that might offset some of the cost of the build-out, which we had in the
Excellent.
budget as well, so.
That'd be great.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
I move approval of 6.2.
Okay, we have a motion to approve, second.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Jacobs, second by Commissioner Ward. Do you have a question? Is there further discussion?
Yeah, well, just a comment, because the public, for all those people out there watching us, probably don't understand what we're doing. Just a little explanation. Winona County has sold the building we're currently sitting in. We are moving most of our facilities, our functions to the county office building diagonally across. But this actually gave us an opportunity to partner with a very important partner, Winona Health, as to putting our public health services in a health organization. So it does a number of things for customer service. It helps eliminate parking problems and congestion in that part of town. And it just, I think Winona Health has always been a very good partner in a lot of our adventures. And I think this is just something very positive going forward for the community. So it is a very positive. And thank you, Ken, for negotiating with them. And I hope it truly was a negotiation and that we came out on top.
Yeah, it was. They started much higher.
Good.
They did.
I see there's a playroom, so that's always good for the families.
Exactly.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the lease with Winona Health. Any further discussion? Motion is by Commissioner Jacobs, seconded by Commissioner Ward. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Okay, thank you. That's original item 6.2 is passed. 6.1 has become 7.04. So that can be found on page 38 of your agenda packet. And that has to do with the Workforce Development Board Executive Director position. Commissioner Olson.
So I would just invite Craig up to the podium, and if you just can talk about what transpired and how this came about and why we're here.
Oh, Madam Chair, Commissioners, county staff, you had about 3-4 hours, or?
Yeah.
2 minutes.
No.
I know, and actually, the summary that staff prepared for you of the materials that I provided you are pretty accurate. I agree with them. It's been about an 18-month progress since we first, lost our current executive director as well as the head of the job service area, and then started working with the state in terms of implementing the latest WIOA legislation that was in place and the things we had to do to comply with those legislations. And really wanted to get all of our ducks in a row before we got you to this point and asked you to replace this person. So I think we've done that at this point. We've got the budget worked out. We've got job responsibilities worked out, job description that we never had before. A lot of things in place that we never really had. And quite honestly, I think the board was kind of in a cruise control, answering questions type of mode in the past. And I think the board now is much, much more engaged in our mission and what we're doing and how we're doing it, and will be much more effective with the executive director that we're asking you to bring on board.
Good. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Commissioner Ward.
Greg, thank you. Is this person going to be able to accomplish the tasks with that limited of a time frame? I mean, it seems unsurmountable. I mean, with the demands for workforce in today's market and everything, I just hope that that's allocated enough for the person to be successful.
It's a basis of what we have available from a budget standpoint. I mean, we're trying to work within the budget that we have, working with the county, and they're doing admin work as well. In addition to the fact that it really is the one-stop operator that we work with at the Workforce Center does the lion's share of the work. The executive director is pretty much more of helping us to stay engaged and staying on top of them as far as them meeting their requirements and goals. And so I think we'll be able to do it. I mean, we may have some gaps, and the chair will have to step in a little bit more, way less than I have been so far, but I think we'll be able to make it work, yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Fitz.
Yeah, just on that particular comment, the way the grants work, if we're able to generate or spend more grants that are available to us, which we do have available to us, through improved processing of those grants and so forth, the amount of money we receive for admin goes up. And so as that goes up, there may be an opportunity, because we share in that. We have the fiscal agent responsibility the county has, and then the workforce development has the executive director if this passes. So if we were able to spend more grant money, we'd have a little more admin money, which means they could have a little more hours for the executive director, and I think that's needed.
And I think with the executive director at our disposal, we'll be able to pursue some additional grants in, providing better or more services to some of the county, as well as I would ask the commissioners, if you have any relationship with the surrounding counties, we do service some people from the surrounding counties, even though we don't get reimbursed for those expenditures. And so right now they're all being serviced by our counterpart over in Rochester. And while they have offices in those counties and do the work, Winona County it's one of the few workforce development boards in the state that sits alone by itself in the county. I think the city of Duluth is its own, and the city of Minneapolis is its own, and the county of Winona is its own. Everybody else has a joint board or a joint members agreement with multiple counties and multiple agencies working together. So if we could look at acquiring some of those counties around us, it would probably help us from a budgetary standpoint as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I know Workforce is a really important organization right now, and I know this committee actually is a very collaborative one, so I appreciate that.
You're welcome. It's a very unique time in that I think historically we were really about just helping people find employment and less more so finding better employment. And now we're truly engaged in helping people to find better employment, but even more so the employers are finally coming into the workforce and are saying, hey, help us find people. And they're quite giddy about it actually, because usually the workforce, the employers don't really need their help, and now they're turning around and so they're making some great connections and forging kind of a path for the future.
Yeah, and you had a table this afternoon at the Veterans Expo,
yes,
too, so that's really good to reach out for special populations. Commissioner Olson.
I just want to add that Craig has, done a lion's share of work out there as chair in the absence of an executive director. And some of the concern that a conversation that went on was the budget and how we were going to afford this person, and I guess the hours and the money available worked out. So we're hoping that you can take a breath now.
Yes.
A little bit.
He's very passionate about it.
Thank you.
Well,
That's very
it's a
helpful.
responsibility that I took on, and I meant to see it through. So hopefully, I can rest of my laurels a little bit, but get Laura up to speed, and then take the mission of the board even further than we have.
Good. Thank you.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Craig. That one, Mark, here.
So, my question's for the board, not for Craig.
Okay, Commissioner Jacob, excuse me.
Is there anything else for Craig, or?
I don't think so. No. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so, Commissioner Olson, you're the county board representative to that committee, correct?
Right.
Yeah. So, to you, everything feels like a good fit. Is there any other concerns that the county board should have, or you're?
The concerns that some of the discussions that I had with Craig and Ken and the executive board prior to coming here tonight was the affordability of it and how the budget process would work. Ken worked that out with the administrative portions of the grant, obviously limited the amount of hours the person would be working. So
before I would vote on the issue, just you're fully supportive of this, right? Okay. That's all I need.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Okay, do we have a motion to approve the Workforce Development Board Executive Director?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Jacob, seconded by Commissioner Olson. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion to approve signify by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? Okay, so now we're on to general business items 7.1, which starts on page 174. And this is receiving the 2018 Citizen Review Panel Annual Report. And this is another example of a volunteer citizen committee that comes together and really pulls together a lot of different activities and focuses on different aspects of, I saw where you're looking at out-of-home placement and some of those issues, so thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, Madam Chairman, and I appreciate the opportunity to come before you again tonight. I know that you all have received a copy of the report in your agenda packet, so I'm not going to go through that line by line. But of course, I would like to make a couple of comments. My name is David Knight, by the way. I'm the co-chair of the Citizen Review Panel, and as we age, this time goes so fast. I don't know if it's the third or the fourth time that I've been before you to present this report. But again, I think that we're unique in Winona County because we are one of only 5 citizen review panels in the state. And the other 4 are all metro or metro outlanding counties like Chisago and Washington. And I think that we bring us, when we get together as a group around the state, we bring a special perspective because of the needs that are much different here, and our population served are much different here than they are in Hennepin and Ramsey counties. This, we did manage to, we lost a member this year. Chong Bang had to leave due to his responsibilities with Project Fine, and we did add Supreme, who was a retired registered nurse. I also have, I shouldn't neglect these 3 people that came to back me up. Betsy Rollcamp, Mark Klink, and Sonia Hansen are 3 of the members on our panel. The Child Protection Citizen Review Panel has a very important role when it comes to the redetermination factors of child protection cases. Whenever a child protection case is found to be substantiated, the subject of the report has the legal right to request a redetermination, and the review panel is the group that comes together to review the report that was done and then offer their opinion as to whether or not it should continue to be substantiated. I just wanted to point out that in 2018 we had 4 of these, but 2 in particular were very, very significant and very, very, I would say, stressful reports from an investigative standpoint, and they're very, very serious. One, of course, was the young mother who was starving her child, and in a means to get attention for herself, we had an opportunity to review that entire case file, which was about that thick. And it took 2 of us over 3 hours to go through the material that was gathered in that case due to the complexity of that case that involved multiple social service agencies, multiple health facilities in La Crosse, in Winona, and in Ramsey County, as well as the local law enforcement in several jurisdictions, including the St. Paul Police Department and Ramsey County Sheriff's Office. That was a very traumatic case, and it was a very traumatic investigation for the people that had to conduct that case. In fact, I think that the people with me that reviewed that case felt that was pretty traumatic also, and they had to kind of take a breath and say, my goodness, what has happened here? The other one was a sexual abuse case, and that was rather traumatic also because it involved a father who had actually been sexually involved with his infant daughter a number of years ago, and had actually taken pictures and then had sent those pictures throughout the internet, which involved then some real child pornography and child sexual abuse cases. Again, a thing that I see Mr. Olson shaking your head. I shake my head at that every time I look at that or every time I think about it. And I know that there are people over in the social services office that are still shaking their head about those kinds of things, and it's hard to wrap your head around how that happens. One of the things as a result of investigations like this that we're seeing more and more of, and if you look at some of the literature, you would also be able to recognize in a big hurry, we talk often about the trauma that's inflicted upon children and upon families in these child abuse cases. But one of the key issues out there right now for helpers, especially social workers, emergency medical technicians, and those kinds of things, is the issue called secondary trauma. And the secondary trauma is being recognized more and more as it relates to the people that are in the field of social work. Almost every place you go in any type of meeting or training, it's always a topic on the agenda. So I just want to thank those people over there who do that work every day tirelessly. As a former police officer, I remember how that feels sometimes when you used to go home at night and you kind of sit in a rocking chair and wonder to yourself, what the heck did I just see, or what the heck was I just involved in? And there's really no place to talk to anybody about that or explain it to anybody. So I just wanted to make sure that we recognize the fact, and those were a couple of really difficult cases. Took a lot of time from a lot of different agencies and a lot of different people. Also, as part of our oversight, we have continued to look at that issue of, as you mentioned, of out-of-home placement. Out-of-home placement has become, I think it's doubled in numbers in terms of the children that we have in out-of-home placement, not only in Winona County, but within the state. Part of that had to do with 3 years ago, the governor's task force that met to review the child protection system and came up with a new system of screening guidelines. So what that really meant was they were screening more cases in for investigation, because that was one of the things that were being addressed. Was a long time ago in a Minneapolis Star-Tribune article about they were passing on too many cases to counseling or whatever, and they weren't investigating enough of them. So now we've seen that that has actually taken an impact, but they're doing more and more investigations. The thing that we found in talking with our local staff and also at the state level is that even though there are more investigations being done, that means that there are more children being placed in out-of-home care. But the percentage of children being placed in out-of-home care to the number of investigations being done is about 9% at our level. And if you look at the state level, it's exactly the same across the board. It's about 9%. So 9% of the cases that are being investigated are resulting in children going into out-of-home placement. It doesn't make it cheaper by any means, that's for sure. We started to look at, as one of our projects, is this whole process of transition, because we have children that are, I think there's 22 children over the age of 14 that are in foster care in Winona County right now. And one of the key factors in helping those children transition back into their normal life or into adulthood is having a good transition planning process and having a good transition plan that helps those young people identify the skills that they're going to need in order to become successful adults at age 18 when they age out of foster care, or age 21 if they happen to stay in extended foster care. And so we're taking a real hard look at some of these transition plans, and we've met with the staff and talked with them about what are the things that you really need in order to help these young people transition into adulthood. Two things that stuck out. Number one, and I don't know that we have, any of us have any ideas of how this would occur. One thing that they need is they need stable housing. When they leave foster care, they're not prepared yet. They have no money. They don't have a job probably, and yet they've got to go find some place to live because the time at foster care is gone. So that's an extreme need, and we've thrown that around a little bit and looked at it. Well, how would that look? What would it, could it be? Could it be an apartment or some kind of a place that would be willing to accept those people? The problem with that is that those kids at that age are still going to need some type of supervision, somebody to help them manage things like paying the rent, paying the utilities, and doing those kinds of things. So that's a real struggle. The other thing is that the staff person pointed out to us was that it's very important that these people have at least one adult in their lives who are significant. Could be a coach, could be a teacher, could be a minister, could be a sister, a brother, it could be an aunt or an uncle, but one person who really accepts them and is there for them. And so we've been talking to different organizations about the possibility of, do you have people that would be involved in this kind of thing? There could be mentors, you know, similar to Big Brothers and Big Sisters, but maybe just a little different than that, who could work with these kids who are in foster care to help teach them the skills, to help them figure out, how do I get a driver's license? How do I pay for that? Who pays for driver's training? How do I go about that whole thing between the age of 14 and the age of 18? Because a lot happens in those 4 years in terms of our growth and in terms of our ability to become young adults and meaningful. Without this level of attention to transition, those people become the people that we see going from foster care into our jail and into our criminal justice system, because they don't have a good, solid foundation with which to function as young adults. So that's going to be kind of our ongoing project through the end of 2018 and into 2019. We want to continue to look at that, to continue to see if we can connect people that we may know in the community with the staff at the social services office, who can then work together to try to provide this service to these young people. So the last part of this report talked about a new federal legislation, and I don't know if many of you have seen this or not, about Family First Preservation Services Act. And the idea behind the Family First Preservation or Prevention Services Act is to take federal monies that have been allocated for certain functions within the child protection or child welfare system and use them more openly or more freely to free up some of the guidelines and restrictions behind the allocation of those federal dollars so that states and local governments can use them in unique ways to provide better services to kids without being hamstrung by all of these rules and regulations. Unfortunately, we were at a meeting of the statewide citizen review panels last week, and the staff from the Department of Human Services said, well, we just can't move quite that fast yet because there are some legal things that they have to have in place before they can start to develop a plan to accept this new federal funding process under this new law. So we'll be watching to make sure that that happens. We continue to look at recruiting new members to the community advisory or the citizen review panel. We'd like to see if we can find some people that that are more diverse in our population. We really enjoyed having Chung with us because he gave us a different perspective on his particular culture. So that's basically where we've been and where we're going, and we appreciate the opportunity to at least talk with you about that and to let you know that our eyes are on this very, very costly and very, very difficult part of delivering community services in Winona County. Any questions or comments?
Commissioner Ward. Thank you, and thank you to all the volunteers who work on this site. I really don't envy you at all to have to review those kind of cases, but thank you for doing that. Last Friday, we had an Association of Minnesota Counties board meeting, and we discussed briefly this Family First Prevention Service Act. And I would ask that you as a committee lobby. Too many times in government, I see when it's federal dollars, and because the state of Minnesota does human services a lot different than most states, is that the federal dollars, too many times and too many dollars end up staying at the state level to, quote, implement and create these things, and not enough money comes down to the people who really do the work. And I've advocated if the state of Minnesota wants to keep the money, then the state of Minnesota should provide the service. So I would ask you to really, it sounds good in theory and everything, but if we don't get dollars to support it, it will be, futile.
We have a great deal of faith, I guess you would say, and our contact is Mary Doyle at the Department of Human Services, and she's been around the Department of Human Services, so she kind of knows how all of these things flow from one place to the other, and that's a very honest concern that she has expressed. And we, in the state of Minnesota, we're a county delivered a service delivery system, where many other states it comes from the state on down, and they're all state employees, and the state money goes to all the employees kind of across the board. And here we have to kind of argue for or fight for our share of the pie. And so I think that's a well-taken point, Commissioner Ward, that we need to keep an eye on that kind of thing, because we don't want to have, lots of money over here becomes a little less money over here and a little less money over here. And by the time Winona County gets their pennies, it's not enough to go around. So we want to look at it. I think that that's one of the things that they're trying to do at the federal level, is look at a way to take this money and make it infuse it more into the communities so that it is actually more beneficial than just sending it to the state to do another study and another study and another study and another child welfare system study. So we'll keep an eye on that for you.
Thank you. I'd appreciate that. And then just related but unrelated, Beltrami County. It's a fairly large geographic county, Bemidji area. They have a major Indian tribe, and their out-of-home placement is just gone, sky high. The county is literally almost broke. They don't know how they're going to cover their, business. So stay tuned, and you may be hearing about Beltrami County, and that may, with the onslaught of that, and of course you're dealing with a tribe and a sovereign nation and all kinds of different things that we don't have to deal with here, but that may push the state of Minnesota to do something different if a county would go broke because of out-of-home placements.
Well, and I think that the other thing, that if you look statistically at what's happening in Beltrami County, Monoman County is the only county, I believe, in the United States that lies totally within the boundaries of an Indian reservation.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But the Indian child welfare people are looking at the disproportionate number of Indian children that are in out-of-home placement. And I think the same thing is true from the African-American populations in the metro area. That's one of the tunes that they're singing very loudly is, how come we have so many more people or children in out-of-home placement than our white neighbors? And so I think that that's something that's going to drive some of this initiative from the federal government, because they have to look at how they're going to meet those needs for those populations as well.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Did you have a comment, Mr. Fritz?
Yes, I do. That particular legislation, the Family First Prevention Act, from what I understand in talking to our staff, buried in there is a provision that will move some of that money that's in that act toward prevention. The downside of that is the Title IV-E money we get right now that offsets some of our foster care out-of-home placement costs, it will go away with that. So we don't know the final disposition, all that, and it kicks in I think 2023 or something like that for some of it.
Yeah, I think there's a whole
bunch of
phase in
details
as
there.
they're going to go.
But like anything, it's kind of what's the actual impact at the end of the day.
Well, and one of the things I've heard tossed about is that they're trying to take some of the regulations off the 4E money.
Right.
So that they can use that 4E money in other ways other than just specifically as it's targeted now. It may make it look like it goes away, but then again, it may provide some additional use for that money that we couldn't use before.
Right. The concept is to try to do preventative things so you don't have the out-of-home placement with that same money that right now is paying for out-of-home placement. So it's a good idea, but how we're going to be able to convert our processes to that, it'll be a transition.
Well, and it's very interesting to me. I've been around for a long time. I've done this work forever. And it's interesting to me to see that conversation go about providing services to families in the home. Anybody that's been around for a while remembers back in 1980, 81, 82, we had a group called the Home-Based Services Team out of social services, and that's what they were doing. But then all of a sudden, that went away. So it's kind of a cyclical process where we're coming back to some of this thing that said, hey, we can't afford to keep paying somebody else to take care of our children. We have to look more at how do we keep them with the family? How do we look at creatively other family members? How do we find, maybe there's a family in North Dakota that could take care of the children in Winona County that belong to this family because there's an aunt and uncle up there. And we need to provide, and that to me would be preventative in terms of trying to find ways other than just resorting to, well, you gotta take the kid out of the home, where's the foster home? We don't have enough foster homes in Winona County. There are enough foster homes in the state of Minnesota. So you end up with kids in Thief River Falls instead of Winona, and then you say to your worker, well, you got to make your monthly visit, so jump in the car and head up to Thief River Falls and make your monthly visit of your child that's in out-of-home placement. It's a difficult task, and we have to keep looking at ways to be creative, to use that money in other ways, other than just sending kids into the foster care system, where oftentimes they never return. So.
Yeah, and if the end goal is to get the child back in the family, that distance doesn't help with that kind of process either, so.
Well, because it doesn't allow, these are families that don't have transportation, or they may not have a way to get around, and you expect the family to do family meetings in Thief River Falls if their child is up there, and how do you do that? Yeah. So there's a lot of stumbling blocks, but it starts with when we take kids out of the home and put them in foster care to keep them safe. There's got to be alternatives to that. And that's what we hope to try to see if we can help with.
There are some groups. There's one group looking at housing gaps in the community, and so far they've focused on some of the gaps for the homeless population, because we have a warming shelter which has very limited, amount of time, and so they're working on that. But children and families was another high priority need in that area. So I don't think the group's going to stop if they finish the homeless population. There were a lot of committed people. So, but thank you for the work that you do, all of you.
Right. And thank you for allowing us to come before you again. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have item 7.2, discuss adding reports from commissioners onto the county board agenda. So I made a request to ask to put this on for a discussion at a future agenda meeting. I've noticed that other counties have these kind of reports, and they usually put them, we have the first 4 items there before we actually get into our consented comments and approval of agenda. So usually put them somewhere in that lineup up there, and just give people a chance to report on committees and meetings in an informal way. We don't always get minutes on committees that people serve on, so I think for that purpose it can help update us. I wouldn't like to get a citizen call about something that I don't know anything about on a meeting that I didn't attend. If someone else attended it, if we could, start to fill that gap just by having an informal discussion or an informal report. So that's really what I had in mind, and I thought we should just open it up for discussion. Commissioner Jacob.
So I think the words you just said is part of the problem I would have. You said we would have an informal report / informal discussion. I'm okay with giving reports, and that's why I called a point of order at the last meeting. Commissioner Meyer was giving a report, and I was fine with that. And then you started, Commissioner Kavesi chimed in on it. And from that point, it became an unscheduled meeting of the county board. And to me, the open meeting law is if we're going to discuss something, the community should have the opportunity to know that we're going to be discussing it, weigh in on it. And so I'm concerned about it becoming a discussion, which is what I saw happen at the last meeting. If we want to give reports, I think that's fine. For me personally, I prefer to wait until the minutes have been generated, because everybody kind of has their own personal political take on what happened, and one commissioner might not be in agreement with what the other commissioner took from that meeting, and it might not be the information that the other commissioner is looking for. Once the minutes are generated, it's the official position of the committee. And for me to sit here, and I look, the last couple months I've attended about 18 to 20 meetings per month. If I'm going to sit here and talk about all 20 of those meetings, we're going to be here for hours. And then I'm not sure that's the information you want to hear. I would prefer that rather than me waiting for the minutes, reading the minutes, and then you hearing me read the minutes, just locate them yourself and read them. That's kind of how I feel about commissioner reports.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Olson.
I'm certainly familiar with other county boards that do that, give reports. And I somewhat agree with Commissioner Jacob that it does sometimes get beyond just the report, and it goes to their opinion. What I do for the Workforce Investment Board, for their agenda, is I forward, when Maureen gives us a summary of what took place tonight, I forward that summary to Craig, and I'll do it to the new executive director. They put that on their agenda so that everybody can see it, which is the summary that Maureen provides of what the board actions. So it does take away, it certainly makes the meeting shorter, that I'm not there giving a full report of what transpired, but people that are interested in it can certainly see it. People that aren't interested in it could just read over that portion of the agenda. So I'm not against the reports, but maybe they could be forwarded in such a way that they're on the county board website where that we all can see them.
Okay. Commissioner Ward.
Right, to put, depending on when you would put them into an agenda, if we would start rattling these things off, and that's sometimes when we have the biggest crowd, do they want to sit and listen to us reports, whereas, we always have the opportunity, number 8, committee reports and communications. And most, not all, but most have official meeting minutes. I'm trying to think of a couple committees that maybe doesn't take an official meeting minute.
Or even formally acknowledge them.
Right.
But we don't always receive those minutes.
Right,
There are
so
many meetings.
it should be our responsibility to forward them, whatever meeting minutes we get, to like Heidi, and then there should be a on the county website, committee meeting minutes or something, maybe a special tab. But to report them all here at the official county board might get a little repetitive, redundant, or political, like we're saying, is it just the meeting minutes, or is it our opinion what happened at the meeting? And I think when there's been hot topics, people have brought things forward. And a lot of times we take actions because we are the duly appointed representative from Winona County serving on those committees and have that responsibility. So I guess I would advocate that we collect the meeting minutes somewhere, and hopefully they're current. Part of the problem is some of these when we only meet quarterly as some of these out-county committees, meeting minutes are going to get pretty old pretty quick. That's the unfortunate part, if you only meet quarterly. And a lot of these extended joint powers boards have been going to quarterly, so the relevance might be not as good.
Okay, Commissioner Jacob, then we have Commissioner Meyer.
And if we were to put them reports at the beginning of the meeting, so I think it was already maybe alluded to, but sometimes we have a lot of staff sitting here, and if you add up what they're paid per hour times how long they would be sitting there, and then furthermore, just asking staff to take all these minutes in and then provide them all back to us, when for us to expect the taxpayers to add to the job we should just be doing, which is to locate the minutes that we're interested in, review them, and if we have concerns, we can bring that to as a future agenda item. I feel the most efficient way is the way we're doing it right now.
Okay, Commissioner Meyer.
Yeah, I would, as a new person on the board, I would appreciate being able to see meeting minutes, more than the ones that we actually get. And a number of committees don't seem to have, even some of the committees that are our county committees don't have minutes on their section of our website. Mm-hmm. So in my process of trying to familiarize myself with different meetings and who goes and what are the topics, it's really kind of been a challenge. I just have to show up and see what they do. So I would appreciate that if we actually take some action to get, they don't have to be written out in my packet, and I don't care if they're at the front or the end, but I certainly would want to be able to see them. And just case in point, the Emergency Medical Services Board, Heidi helped me find that they do in fact have a website.
Yes.
But there's no meeting minutes on there.
That's the one I was thinking.
Exactly, yeah. So that would be really helpful to me if we actually were able to have access to them, and I'm not so concerned about the specific form that takes.
Mr. Fitz, did you have your light on?
Yeah, I was just thinking from our perspective, typically, if we reach out to one of those committees and they take minutes, we just ask them to add the county board to the distribution list.
That'd be great.
And that usually happens. So if there's anything that's missing, that allows us to, it's a one-time thing. We don't have to do it in the future. Now we do rely somewhat on that group, and if we get a new commissioner or something, we have to let them know. Yeah. And then the minutes internally that should be on our website that come from our standing committees that have been appointed, they should all be out there, and if they're not, we need to identify them and put them on there. Okay. Or have the department put them on there. Maybe Maureen has some input there.
Okay, Commissioner Jacob.
I don't know the order.
Oh, sorry.
I'm ceding some of my time to her.
Oh, okay. She doesn't have a light. She needs a light.
She doesn't.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, just a heads up that not all committees' minutes would be public data.
Right.
Yeah.
True.
Got that, yes.
Right.
Some of the
Yes,
And that's fine.
yeah. Commissioner Jacob.
Well, and I'm also wondering from a standpoint of, tonight we had Planning Commission and Board of Adjustment minutes in our packet. So I'm always conscientious in that I don't have the taxpayer pay for printing off one of these packets and mailing it out to me. But if we're putting that all in our packet instead of just online, that becomes paper, ink, time to put it together, time to send it out. It's all a burden on taxpayer when it should be our job to just go to the electronic place that's available and find it.
As long as it's available,
Yeah,
because,
if we could.
yeah. Because mostly I had in mind meetings that we don't get minutes for. And I think probably what we could do is look at that list and see how many meetings there are that we don't get minutes for, because I think the number would be more surprising. And, an informal report, I think we would use our professional judgment when and how much to report. Obviously not any private data, as Maureen, as Ms. Holte pointed out. But really just those meetings that we don't receive the minutes for. And then soon we need to start getting those minutes. And it doesn't matter to me if they go on the website or if they go into the packets. I see your point about that. But just to make them accessible, because right now they're pretty scattered and sometimes not available. Okay, Commissioner Ward, then Commissioner Olson.
Yeah, just one thing, some of these committees do have their own websites. So maybe we need to, on our, maybe on the calendar or something, we put that website address there so that it's easily accessible if some member of the community or somebody wants to, as long as it's a public.
SWCE does.
Yeah, as long as it's a public website, I think, we could easily incorporate it into our calendar or something so then everybody would just have it right there.
Right, and our policy actually, Commissioner Olson.
Well, I'm just going to, the placeholder will still be on our agendas for committee reports. And
Number 8, is that what you're, yeah.
So I mean, if there's something that
Okay.
we want to report on our committees, then I think that placeholder's there. The discussion aspect of it, didn't really have a problem with it, but I do understand that it could be something that, wasn't on the agenda for discussion, so a report and keep it at a report with no question and answer type thing, but.
Yeah, and the only problem is at the end of the agenda, we do tend to be more informal. So I think I just made a comment about one of the people. I wasn't intending to start a discussion, but all in all, it was a report and I should have left it at that. Then I would just say that we use our professional judgment when and how much to report, but particularly focus on meetings that we do not receive minutes for. And meanwhile, if, without too much trouble, if staff could review the list of meetings, particularly the ones we're liaisons to, because it is our county policy that if we are supported by the county to attend these meetings, we do need to make sure we're bringing back reports. So whether that's minutes or a short verbal report, I would like use your professional judgment. If you think a report needs to be made before the minutes arrive, then we can also say, then let's add a discussion to another agenda item, to a future agenda. So, that seems to me how that information from a report could become a discussion at a future agenda.
I think that was what I did at the last meeting. I had an issue from Southeast Minnesota Water Resource Board. I thought it should be just, maybe the whole board should look at it and know what's going on. So I asked to just have it put on the agenda rather than to informally start a discussion that's not on our agenda.
Well, there were several meetings and, we didn't have any reports, so now we'll have a report. Does anybody disagree if I say the summary is that we'll use our professional judgment when and how much to report, and we'll focus on the meetings that we don't officially get minutes for, and meanwhile we'll ask the staff to, if it's not too onerous, to review the list of meetings that we are liaison for and check which ones we actually get minutes for, see how we can get those minutes, and then put them on the website without printing them perhaps in our agenda, because the agendas get pretty stacked. So if that's a summary, does anybody disagree? I don't think we have to take any formal action. If we just want to change our focus perhaps for those committee reports, use them in that way.
Sounds okay to me.
Okay. All right. I'll be glad to help staff go through the meetings that we attend and see if which ones we're not getting minutes for. So, okay, thank you. Item 7.3, discuss developments with the Southeast Minnesota Water Resources Board.
Okay, that was an item I asked to have on the agenda. So I wanted to bring to this board's attention, and we're a committee that only meets once every other month, so, things don't happen at a, real fast pace there, but we called a special meeting here recently. So for the last 18 months, we've been working towards trying to merge the Southeast Minnesota Water Resource Board with the Southeast Technical Association, who we worked closely with in the past, and try to better justify having a executive director on board and justify the work for that executive director. So at our March meeting, then Olmsted County notified us that they would be doubling our dues from $5,000 a county, adding $4,975. So administration was going to go from $5,000 per county at 10,000 total, because it's 10 counties, to 100,000. It's going to go from 50,000 to 100,000. At the same time, part of the reason we've been trying to merge with someone else is because as the advent of the One Watershed, One Plan has kind of come to light, many of the grants that we used to administer are going to these One Watershed, One Plans, and that's what Bowser's focusing on, which makes it harder for us to really sustain what we're doing. Same meeting, our executive director informed us that she was resigning. Same meeting, Steele County indicated that because of the One Watershed, One Plan and their legal advice that they need to form a joint powers board for that, they'll have $5,000 dues for their One Watershed, One Plan joint powers board. And their statement at that meeting was that they would have to withdraw from the Southeast Minnesota Water Resource Board because they can't afford both. Same meeting, Rice County, Jake Gillian stated that if the dues go up, that they would withdraw. And the idea of the Southeast Minnesota Water Resource Board is to be a regional collaboration, and if you end up with a checkerboard and not all the counties are in, it makes it less effective. Same meeting, Fillmore County, the chair, Dwayne Bakke, had put on the agenda, and I think this was probably news to all of us, but he suggested that we discuss disbanding. Same meeting, Fillmore County, or Dodge County, came forward with a plan where they would offer to facilitate the disbanding process because we can't afford Olmsted and we don't have an executive director. So Dodge County offered to provide that service to us. And so then at that meeting, we took a vote, and it takes a 2/3 majority vote for the Southeast Minnesota Water Resource Board to disband, and there was a 2/3 majority vote to disband. So then within the next 60 minutes, we looked at the programs that we were administering, and we had 6 of them that we were working on. And within 60 minutes, we had volunteers from different agencies and counties through the, I guess what all concerns I've brought in the past is that we have some redundancies and overlap in our water planning. So we were able to find homes for all those programs, the good work that was being done by the Southeast Minnesota Water Resource Board, all those programs are continuing to be administered without the $100,000 administrative burden to Southeast Minnesota. So really, that's kind of proof on whether the Southeast Minnesota Water Resource Board needed to exist or not. We can do all the work without that board existing. So that was all at the same meeting was discussed, and I think there were informal discussions through staff after that, but we already had a list of who was willing to take on what. So then we called a special meeting and really formalized that discussion and which counties would take on what and how Dodge County would facilitate the disbanding process. And then subsequently, there's been a resolution that's been developed by the Southeast Minnesota Water Resource Board for all the participating counties to vote on. So I would just offer that at the next county board meeting that resolution would come before our board and we would discuss it and vote on it and send it back to the Southeast Minnesota Water Resource Board. So that's kind of a synopsis of what's transpired and what we're working through.
Thank you. Commissioner Olson.
So was that on their agenda to disband?
Yes.
It was.
It put on by the chair.
Okay.
Yes, it was.
So my question is, this happened in early March, so it's now the end of April. And was there any way that you thought the board should be involved in a discussion sooner, perhaps, or some kind of, again, this is a group we don't get minutes for.
I saw minutes come through here recently. I know I did.
Yeah, last week maybe. There was an email.
Okay, then that's the first one we've gotten.
I don't think so.
I looked on the website and I had to find minutes. I found minutes from January.
We only meet every other month. January, February, March. We don't meet in February.
Okay, but,
And we don't approve the January minutes until March.
and the March minutes were the first minutes we've seen.
I don't know that.
That I recall. Okay, let's keep going. Throughout this discussion, did anyone have legal consultation on, methods to disband? Because we upgraded an agreement last July or so with this group, and the removal, the discussion there, or in that document, we had something about, it seemed to focus on individual counties. If a county wanted to disband, they needed to check, or to remove themselves, they needed to check with their board and then come back, and then the water board would have to agree by 2/3.
No, yeah, we did ask legal counsel. We went to MCIT, Jen Wolf. Each county has the ability, the other 10 counties can't force one county into it. Any county, by a vote of their board, can withdraw if they want to.
By vote of this board, not the water board.
Right. So
Yeah.
if Winona County, at any point in the last 20 years that this has existed, or however many years it's existed, if we decided it wasn't in our best interest, this board could take a vote, and I think it was a 30-day notice had to be given, and we could withdraw. So legal advice was that this resolution should be sent out. That's where that came from. And that all counties, by a 2/3 majority vote of all counties, the board will disband. Mm-hmm. And I would imagine.
So we have very little on this page here. Do you have a copy of the resolution?
That was sent by email. I saw it.
It's not on the agenda because it wouldn't be placed until the next board meeting.
Okay,
It's pretty short.
yeah. I guess, since this happened in early March, we've had a couple board meetings in between. It seems like something as important as a group disbanding itself, we could have had a discussion sooner. So I'm glad we're having a discussion
Well, why
now.
don't you look at exactly when our meetings fall and when their meeting fell? And, it was 2 weeks ago that I brought it forward. So it happened in March and I brought it forward in early April.
Yeah, it happened March 8th or March 1st. I don't know which. Okay.
And we had a special meeting called in there, and I was, waiting to see what transpired. Just like, to me, Commissioner Olson and the Workforce Development Board. I mean, there's a lot going on there, and I trust that he's doing good work for Winona County. I mean, I feel a little bit like there's accusations that I'm not.
I'm just wondering why we weren't told about something so important as a disbandment of a water board.
You are being told.
In a more timely manner. Excuse me, I wasn't quite finished. Commissioner Olson, you had your light.
I guess on the Workforce Investment Board, I don't vote on anything that happens there, so.
You are a representation.
I understand it, but I'm not a voting member.
But tonight I asked you particularly.
And
I respect
so
your
I guess
work.
my question is not regarding that, but, so the resolution will give this board the option to support the disbandment?
Yep.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
And if we're the only member left?
No, so if 2/3 of the other counties vote to disband, which is likely, it won't matter what we do. And it's likely because 2/3 of the counties voted affirmatively to disband at that meeting, and that was without even all the counties being there. So it took a 2/3 majority of the total board without the total board being there. So.
Commissioner Ward.
Oh,
Commissioner Meyer.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Okay. I can wait, but no, go ahead, and then I'll wait.
All right, thanks. So if the resolution's going to come before us next time, what I'd like to be able to have is a little bit more information to help base my decision. So I understand in your discussion, what you're telling us is that the grants more often are going to one watershed, one plan, joint powers board. But I'd be interested in knowing maybe an analysis of both the benefits and the negative points of the disbanding, so that I would have a little more information to make a kind of a better measured decision. If there are still some grants that we would not have the ability to apply for by not having the multiple counties involved, and then if there are some positives that might come out of it. So I'm not sure who the appropriate person is to do that presentation, if Daryl Buck or if Ms. Qualley or if there's the Sheila Harms, I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it would be Sheila would kind of be a part of it, but I think there's a number of people that are involved, whether it's Commissioner Jacob at the actual policy level, whether it's staff at that level, Kay maybe with her insight into it.
Yeah, and I don't want a giant presentation, just really someone to give me a rundown of 3 to 5 negatives or positives, if there are that many, of what happens, just to help me make a
Probably
decision.
copy of the programs that we're administering and what's happening with those programs. I mean, there were no loose ends. Everything that we were doing all the good work is continuing to be done. We're not abandoning the work that's being done. We're just doing it without spending $100,000 on administration.
That's the disposition of the current grants, but are there future grants then that we simply won't be able to get because it's disbanded? That's really the question I'm hoping to kind of have a better understanding of.
That particular question, Sheila probably could answer.
Okay.
That specific question.
Yeah, and I don't want a long presentation, really, just something to help me. And even if it just came out in advance for me to read, that would be fine too,
Commissioner Ward.
What Commissioner Jacob is talking about, I served on that committee for a number of years, and this has come up in years past. It all depends on how the grants are flowing and what emphasis the federal, state, and Bowser is playing, where they're shifting these dollars. And so right now, as Commissioner Jacob said, a lot of the money, a lot of the grants is being directed towards the one watershed, one plan concept. And believe me, it seems like the grants are flowing. I mean, it's just like water. It's running. Bowser, every time we have a meeting, the Bowser people, they got more money from some different pot. So I don't think there's a lack of money. But you do have to keep in mind for many years, and I've always thanked them, Olmsted County has been a very big asset to administrating a lot of these positions for many joint powers boards. Olmsted County has come to the realization, and it's highlighted here, is that a staff person to them costs over $100,000. When you figure wages, benefits, retirements, everything, they're figuring $100,000 per employee. So that's why they needed to, because this person was an Olmsted County employee, correct? Mr. Jacob?
Yep.
Yeah, so that's where and they had done a lot of those things in the past kind of as a gratuitous type thing. Well, we'll give you a staff person to run your meetings. We'll type up the meeting minutes and things like that. They can't, well, I don't know that they can't, but they're deciding not to, provide those services to a lot of these joint powers. So that did, play heavily into the decision, as I'm told from other counties. But Commissioner Jacob, staff, which this meeting is also heavily attended by staff. Usually, as I remember, there was, like 11 commissioners and probably 22 staff.
Can I speak to that?
And were they, yes, so I'm asking, were they supportive of all this, and they were part of helping decide who could handle what grant?
So part of the frustration was that in the last 5 years, as the One Watershed, One Plan has been developing, there was very few staff that ever came to the meetings.
Oh, okay.
And until we had it on our agenda to disband, all at once there was 20 people. And so coincidentally, I did the math on how much that costs, how much a person is worth, and we're up to, I think, $4,500 or $5,000 between the amount of hours that the staff is there for half a day, all the per diems and the mileage. It's not free for us to have these meetings. If we can administer the programs and do the good work that needs to be done without the administrative burden for the, so it had been a frustration that I think especially Commissioner Bakke, the chair, just felt like we were being ignored, and all the attention's going to the 1-1. And for me, it is easier to, our water planner has suggested that we enter another 1-1 plan in Winona County, and we haven't done that yet because Olmsted County has got 3 1-1s that intersect in their county, and it becomes quite confusing for the counties and the representatives to have all that going on, plus this, and this Southeast Minnesota Water Resource Board costs dollars in funds, and now they're being asked to create joint powers boards, which are costing money to be part of, and it becomes overlap and redundancy. And it just, the board served a very real purpose for many years, and that's going to be overshadowed by a new process and a new program that should be effective too.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Madam Chair, I buzzed in there.
Oh, sorry.
I just would like to ask, once this resolution does come before the board, that my office has an opportunity to look at the joint powers agreement for the Southeastern Minnesota Water Resources Board, because usually there's language there as to what a member county's obligations might be upon disbandment, or, there may be some liabilities, some equipment, whatever. I mean, there's usually a provision in the joint powers, just like we have in the One Watershed, One Plan. So make sure that we're not leaving any trail of obligations. So I just ask that my office get a copy of that before the meeting in advance so I can review it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's have our comments and reports.
Okay, so Association Minnesota Counties, we will have our District 9 they call it the spring. It's June 3rd. June to me is summer, but it's our spring meeting, June 3rd, and luckily it's here in Winona. We won't have to travel far, but the AMC staff coordinates everything, and I'm pretty sure it'll be over at the History Center. We've had it there in the past, but that'll be the 11 counties coming in. We had at our AMC board meeting, of course, we had a legislative update, and just stay tuned. Everything's kind of going crazy. I think the only thing we're certain of is that you can't talk on your cell phone now and drive. Yeah. I think that's the only thing that, so I don't know if we need to invest in hands-free for any staff or anything. I don't know if that's something that we're obligated to do. But that's about the only thing that's passed. And again, I encourage you to read the highlights of each policy chair, and if you serve on that policy and have some issues to follow up with the AMC staff, they're very knowledgeable and on top of things with all the legislative change and everything that's going on. So June 3rd.
Thank you. Commissioner Meyer.
Yeah, well, since Ben is still here, he may want to help me out. There's a lot of different trainings going on, but there's one for us, for elected officials. I have one copy of it. Are you going to send a copy of this invitation out? This is for the event?
It did go.
June 25th? Ends up going out to the county board. I have a copy of it here if you want to pass it down. But it's to help elected officials understand what their role is in an emergency situation.
That's not, is that like the NIMS or?
It doesn't look like NIMS.
No, this is, if I can, it's.
Yeah. We just need you, Ben, to come to the podium, please. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. Director Joe Kelly from the State Homeland Security Emergency Management has started an initiative to go around to every county to do an update to elected officials and senior staff on your role in a disaster, what's expected, how the procedures work for working with the state. So I set it up for June before a night county board meeting. I've invited all the townships, all the cities in the county, so hoping their elected officials and their senior staff will attend it. So I've talked to other counties that have done it. They said it's real worthwhile. I've been to other trainings put on by Director Kelly. He's a really good instructor.
Do they serve food?
There's going to be coffee and cookies, and I was instructed we had to be done by 6 so you guys could go get dinner before the...
Yeah, 3:30.
Yeah.
Right across the street, I suppose.
It's at the History Center.
It's at the History Center.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you, Ben.
That was it.
Yeah. Okay, I have a request on something that we discussed at the last meeting, and actually, we're using a pay-for-performance model for our evaluation for our administrators, so we are using that model, at least in that sense. And the one piece that actually completes it would be some goals for this year or for this year and half of next year, however you want to organize that. But I would like to have a discussion at a future board agenda meeting with some goals that you would be submitting.
Oh, okay.
Is that, do I have a second for that for a future agenda?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay, thank you.
A question, when Heather Bandine comes back into town, were we not going to do some goal setting with her?
The strategic planning thing?
Do we have a date for that?
Yeah, it's May 14th. It's already scheduled for after the board meeting.
That would be fine.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So
Okay. Yeah, okay, May 14th.
should we wait for this till after that?
Well, let's use that as like a working session, which is what it is, so that we can all develop
Typically,
priorities and goals. Yeah.
Typically, from a strategic planning perspective, the board has to decide what the priorities are, and then all the organization's goals should flow from that. It should be aligned with that higher level. It'd be good if we did that, and then that way some of the goals, if there's specific goals that you want to achieve through the county administrator, they would tie together better.
Okay, well, it seems like we've never quite taken that last final step, so I'd like to get through that this year.
And I suppose I should know this. So it's on the 14th and it's after the board meeting?
It's a working session that's planned for the 14th.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
I thought we sent something out a while ago, and of course we'll be sending something out soon.
I missed it if you did. I apologize.
It may be.
Good. And the only thing else that I have is that I actually was able to attend the Veteran Services Expo today. It was a really nice collection of federal, state, local, even VA regional resources, because people were there from TOMA. So there was a real broad, there was a lot of variety of services that our vets are using. You could talk to people at the tables and you could see how they collaborate and coordinate with other groups that were in the room. So that was really good to see that some of those things are working in coordination. We had, Workforce was there, as I pointed out, and also Winona County Human Services people were there because they have a role to play also. And, of course, our Veterans Office. So just want to thank them for doing that. Anybody else? Did you have something, Steve? Yes, you did. Excuse me. Commissioner Jacob.
Yeah, so I just wanted people to be aware, of course, myself as a farmer, this is the time of year that we're going to the fields, and you're going to run across slow-moving farm machinery. It's tempting to think, well, he's going slow, I'm going 55, I'm just going to swing right around. At any time, that tractor is likely to be making a left turn into a field drive, and you're not going to want to, and I've heard of some very severe accidents from that happening. So make sure you're understanding what they're going to do and give them room. It's that time of year, so that's my concern.
Thank you. Ms. Sonneman.
Just, it's that time of year, and for spring, it is really spring. May 2nd and May 3rd, we're going to have our Law Day through our Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. That is where we host all area 6th graders. And we've got every 6th grader except St. Charles, and we keep trying to get St. Charles, but their schedules don't mesh with ours. So I want to invite the board to attend, and all community members, if you want to stop in. It's at the courthouse. On May 2nd, we'll have participating schools, Lewiston, Altura, Emmanuel Lutheran, St. Charles Lutheran, St. John's Lewiston, St. Matthew's, St. Stan's, Riverway, and St. Martin's. And then on Friday, May 3rd, we'll have the entire 6th graders from the Winona Middle School. This brings together all participating agencies in our criminal justice system. We have learning stations set up at the courthouse, and there's the tours of about 30 kids in each group come through those stations. We have a defense court admin, a trial, a prosecutor station, which includes our treatment court, and then the Department of Corrections. And we also cover law enforcement, and that's done by Bridget Klinger, who's our community liaison officer for the Winona Police Department, and she's gone out to all 6th grade classrooms to talk about Law Day and what's going to happen. And the highlight of it is our mock trial, and this is our 9th year doing this, and we're focusing on vaping, which is a real serious problem, particularly in the high schools, but we've heard about it in the middle school as well. And that's where, you have a thing that looks like a flash drive, for instance, that you can smoke from. And so we'll have a mock trial where the kids get to play all the parts, judge, defense attorney, prosecutor, witnesses, and also the alleged perpetrators. Which includes actually this year looking at what are the parents' roles, as well as the kids who are trading around vaping devices. So it should be a great day, couple days there, and we always get good feedback from the kids every year and the teachers. So just wanted to announce that.
Thank you. It is a great event.
Yeah, and you're looking for volunteers. 'Cause
I
signed up
I
for a
think
shift on the
oh,
3rd.
good. Okay, yeah, I think we still are, and just check with Colleen Engel, Executive Director of CJCC, if you want to volunteer. I don't know if Commissioner Kavesi, you usually volunteer too, I think.
Yeah, I actually have a conflict this year, but
Okay.
yeah.
Rail Commission, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but yeah, stop in if you can, but particularly see the mock trial, which we have 2 sessions every day of that, so that's great.
Yep, the trial is the highlight. It's very cool.
Yeah. So,
Do you use
that's
it as a career day?
You know, I've actually had kids who've come back from years past who said they remember Law Day, and sometimes it does affect how they get to see a lot of things that I know I never saw when I was a kid that age. So, yeah, so it's
They
great.
ask some good questions, and sometimes they're along those lines.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, take a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn. Commissioner Olson, seconded by Commissioner Jacob. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.